So, what real problem AI is solving in your world, especially for the financial advisors or the wealth managers?
Yeah, so initially we created the first AI note taker for financial advisors back in 2023. This was back in the era of GPT 2.0, if you remember. This is Ada, Da Vinci, things like that. And so I realized that a large portion of my day was spent trying to make sure I get the notes in. Sometimes I wasn't very good at writing the best notes. And so this was a natural kind of extension of that. Nowadays, though, I think AI has evolved greatly since those days, and so there's a lot more application available, which is why we've had a bit of a pivot in our company, which we can get into later in this conversation.
Welcome to the Wealth Vibe Show, where we explore not just how to create wealth, but how to protect, retain, and expand it financially, spiritually, and energetically. Today's conversation sits at the intersection of wealth, technology, and human connection. We are talking about AI, but not in a futuristic or abstract way. We are talking about how AI is actively reshaping client relationships, decision making, and long term wealth creation right now. My guest today is Daniel Yoo. He's the founder of FinMate AI, an AI-powered note-taking and workflow assistant built specifically for financial advisors. So before launching FinMate AI in 2023, Daniel spent 7 years managing over 800 million in client assets at different firms, including TD Ameritrade and Schwab. He brings a rare blend of deep financial expertise and advanced technical knowledge with degree of UC Berkeley and master's in applied economics from Johns Hopkins, where he focused on machine learning and AI for asset pricing. So Daniel, awesome. Welcome to the Wealth Vibe Show. I'm super excited to learn from you today.
Perfect. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, and today our topic is how AI is reshaping wealth building and client trust. So, take us back to your journey, Daniel. You have managed hundreds of millions of dollars in client asset and worked in this, reputed financial institutions. So, what first made you realize that technology, specifically AI, could fundamentally change how wealth is built and managed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as I worked for these kind of larger organizations in finance, I realized that a lot of these organizations, especially the industry itself, was very slow to adopt technology.
Mm-hmm.
Back at TD Ameritrade, when we were opening accounts or doing Roth conversions, I had to fax forms from our office into the headquarters for processing. And who uses fax nowadays, right? And so after doing my master's, I realized there's a good opportunity to help the industry modernize using AI. And so that's where this whole idea got started.
But you were managing, the kind of wealth. You were like more like a wealth manager over there, a financial advisor, right? So you
Correct.
might have seen some gaps that you saw you can mitigate with AI. So shed some light on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, for as an advisor, obviously we have a lot of administrative tasks to do, and as an advisor, our main job is to talk with clients, advise clients, and so a lot of the administrative burden was getting in the way of that. And so the biggest need I thought for advisors, like myself, who was in the seat, is to have these tools that can help reduce that admin burden so that we can talk to more clients.
So basically, it's saving you time, right? So what real problem AI is solving in your world, especially for the financial advisors or the wealth managers?
Yeah, so initially we created the first AI note taker for financial advisors back in 2023. This was back in the era of GPT 2.0, if you remember. This is Ada, Da Vinci, things like that. And so I realized that a large portion of my day was spent trying to make sure I get the notes in. Sometimes I wasn't very good at writing the best notes. And so this was a natural kind of extension of that. Nowadays, though, I think AI has evolved greatly since those days, and so there's a lot more application available, which is why we've had a bit of a pivot in our company, which we can get into later in this conversation.
So the note takers are like, initially it wasn't that great, I still see that, especially with the Zoom. Zoom has kind of incorporated the AI feature there, and it takes the note or captures all the information, but just kind of very high level. So it's not the kind of similar way taking the notes down like you and me. We do it on the vetting process with our investors or clients, try to figure out who they are. So it doesn't dive in like really deep into the conversation and capture all that. So is it like being worked on, or is it like
Mm.
better your version, the way you guys are doing it?
Correct, yes. So back in the 2.0 days, I think the context window was just a few thousand, maybe a few 10,000s of tokens for the context. And so
Mhm,
you're right, in the beginning, especially, the generic node takers are very high level and not detailed enough. And so
mhm,
that's why we thought there was a gap in the market where we could come in and provide some service because I understood the kinds of notes that advisors needed. And so we were able to do multi-layer processing from the transcript down to the actual notes to be able to provide that level of detail. And so, yeah, I think the usual complaint for us is actually that we're too detailed sometimes. And so we have versions where we have actually simplified the notes further for those advisors. But we are able to generate very highly detailed notes now.
so can you create the workflows too from those notes that you're taking, and then maybe tasks? So when you say simplified, so I was thinking about that, maybe you can create the task from there and then more simplified approach for the wealth managers. Okay, here's the touch point. Do this or do this next kind of thing.
Sure, absolutely. We do generate follow-up tasks from the conversation as well. And then from there, we can trigger workflows inside your CRM. Now, the new direction we're going is actually going into agentics to automate some of these workflow processes. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have a custom agentic AI development program where we can develop out these workflows custom to how each individual firm operates. As I'm sure you know, a lot of these financial advisory firms, they operate very, very differently. And so we believe that the future of AI is in these hyper customizations to be able to slot in very easily to how the advisors are currently doing their practice.
So do you see, when you're capturing all these notes, I'm pretty sure all these companies, when they started incorporating the note takers, like Fireflies or even the Zoom have embedded some note taker too. And I think there's a bunch of others out there in the market. So people are doing that. So obviously people see value. And then
Mhm.
also, plus you're gathering so much data, right? And that's kind of your kind of amplifying whatever you're doing. And from the AI perspective too, all this data is useful, right? So, in this whole scenario, when you're looking at your whole trajectory, being a wealth manager, managing so many people, talking to so many people daily basis, seeing all the gaps in the industry, you wanted to automate a bunch of things. So I can understand then, you came up with this idea that you wanted to start this FinMate that AI? Or is there a special story behind it that you wanted to share with us?
No, I think you pretty much got it right. With my studies in the AI space and understanding the industry, I thought there was a big need for reducing again that administrative burden. But like you mentioned, nowadays there are a ton of these options available. Even when we got started, there was a number of generic note takers out there. But now the generics are going into these niche industries, as well as there's been a number of folks that came into this space of niche note taking. And that's why we believe that I think kind of the note-taking space has been commoditized down now. And so whereas about 2 years ago, it was a premium product, nowadays I believe it's a commodity. And so
Mhm.
again, I think the future is less in platform SaaS and more in custom development and workflows, automations.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be all custom. Those days are gone. The SaaS model's not applicable anymore with the AI and then blockchain, the way the technology is moving. So I know a lot of people still kind of hesitant, are not familiar with the AI platform that much, it's like still kind of foreign phenomena for a lot of people. So, what do you think? What is your thought process? How do you get people to embrace, or how do you talk to your client and then share with them, how you can make this like a really cool wealth building strategy for yourself, if you strategize it correctly?
Yeah, I think most people are a little hesitant because the industry is changing so rapidly. right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's just been about 2 years since we launched, and now again, there's 30 people, companies doing the same exact thing. And so a lot of wealth managers are predictably a little bit hesitant and confused as to what they should be doing, right? Because the field is changing so quickly. Financial advisors are not necessarily AI experts at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why we've developed a new consulting program where a lot of our existing clients, the biggest question they've been asking me is, hey, Daniel, like, what should we be doing? And so we've created a 3-month program where we kind of go through corporate architecture, see how the company is currently being operated and ran, and then provide some timeline and guidance on where they should be applying AI to different parts of the business, what the ROI might look like. And then as a follow up to the consultation process, we can say, hey, here's some tools that you can buy, but it also here's what it would look like if we were to build this tool for you instead.
Hmm. So let me change the angle a little bit over here. Let me ask you this. For the investors, or the entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast, how should they think about AI as part of their long-term wealth building strategy, even they're not technical?
Yeah, I think the beauty of AI is that it makes previously very technical things a little bit less technical. So if you have certain automations or tools that you think would be useful for you, there's tools available right now where you can just build it yourself. I think
Mhm.
where we come in as a little bit more technical backgrounded people is that we're able to build more complicated tools using AI, but still we can build it a lot quicker and more robustly. And so for investors, I definitely do think there's a bit of a bubble right now in the AI industry. I think there
Mhm.
was a Bloomberg report that showed all the major corporations just investing in each other and buying up each other's tools, which shows a lot of velocity of money going up without necessarily anything really being done, right? So, Microsoft invests in OpenAI, OpenAI buys a bunch of Microsoft. It's just money being churned through the system. So, in terms of investment, I'd be a little bit careful right now. Really look into who's providing real long-term value. And I also think that uh, SaaS valuations will need to go down, mainly because uh, as AI develops further and it gets easier and easier and cheaper to build tools, um, the platform model will inevitably have to take some price cuts because the nature of competition is such that if you cannot build moats in technology, it'll just be easier and easier to copy and then commoditize all the platforms down in price.
Yeah, you said something really interesting over here, how companies are investing in each other's, because I sometimes feel I could be wrong, coming from where I am, from my platform, the way I see things is, I'm not sure if a lot of companies know what they're trying to do is just like AI could be in hype because they wanted to invest in AI. And I just feel like there's a lot of competition, like who's going to be the early adopter, who's going to succeed in this thing. Oh, I'm going to, like get hired. I'm going to be the first one to do it. But the thing that we're forgetting is because all the data that we are collecting and all the modeling that we are doing, with that, AI is getting reshaped on daily basis. Every day is collecting more data and every day is getting finer, like, kind of refining itself. So the day that you're producing, the thing that you're producing today, that might not be new anymore tomorrow. No, I don't know. That's how I feel. And I just feel like that's the reason there's a lot of confusion in the industry still, different industries. And there's like kind of competition to get ahead in AI. So what is your thought process regarding that? Because you are sitting right in the middle of that, I'm an
Yeah,
outsider, I'm looking at it, the way things are happening.
yeah. I think there's two ways to look at it. Number one is if you're a model provider, and then number two is if you're one of the intermediaries like us, right? And so for model providers, I don't envy their job right now because there's 4 or 5 big players just in the U.S. alone, and
Mhm.
then there's a ton of competition abroad as well. The issue with being first is now you have a target, and now you're easier to copy, right? I'm sure you've seen the news where people are paying crazy amounts of money to these AI
Mhm.
engineers to poach them from company to company. Right? Meta poached a bunch of OpenAI folks,
Mhm.
and back and forth, right? And then ultimately speaking, it'll be good for the consumer because more competition, right? It means we have better models for cheaper.
Mhm.
I do question when the gravy train will end. right?
Mm.
All of that money being invested needs to come from somewhere, and a lot of it is kind of the venture capital, private equity investment. Potentially, the government might step in because they see AI as a key industry or a key technology for national security in the days to come. So I think a lot of that will die down eventually when the money runs out. If will the money run out, especially if the government is backing it? Maybe not, but we'll have to take a closer look at that. For intermediaries like us, I think the risk there is in the base models improving to an extent where whatever additions we add on top are not sufficient to keep pace, right? So again, back in the early days of 2.0, we had to do a lot of complicated processing and multi-layered work to be able to get the output that we desired. But now a lot of those things that we built back in just 2 years ago is now obsoleted because the base models are much more powerful and it can handle that large context window, whereas we had to play a lot of tricks to be able to extract it and to be able to maximize those context windows. It kind of reminds me of, if you remember back in like the early 2000s, late 90s, we had the race for memory and
Mhm.
storage in computing, right? And all of a sudden, the increases in memory and storage kind of became irrelevant because we just have so much of it now, right? So maybe down the road we'll see something like that where there's such a race for better and better AI, but after a certain point, I feel like it will be a little bit non-useful because we've already kind of hit the peak of what we need to do everyday tasks.
So what do you think with the AI coming into picture in the coming years? What is the impact is going to be in the job market? You think there's going to be a lot of automation, and a lot of repetitive work is going to go away because
Yeah.
AI is going to take over. I think that's the other fear, people have that about, oh, what is going to happen tomorrow? It's going to be just a machine world that we're going to be living in.
Yeah, I think that's very hard to predict. I mean, we're already seeing the impacts on the job market, right? A lot of entry-level engineering positions are just gone
Mhm.
because AI is really good at coding, at least on the entry
That's true.
level, right? It's
That's
not great, at building complex architecture. It's not really great at, deciding, what goes on the front end, what goes on the back end, right? So like seniors, I think, they still have work to do because they need to babysit the AI.
Mhm.
But a lot of the entry levels are just gone. And then you can think about like certain rote things, right? Translation jobs are gone now, right? Because no one needs a translator anymore, right?
Yeah, I know. You can watch Netflix in any language basically these days.
Yeah, and it'll continue to get better and better.
Mm.
But I think in certain areas where it's a lot of just process heavy, financial advising, for example, taxes, legal services. I know there's a big push with AI to try to automate a lot of that work away. But at least in those industries, I think there's some layer of protection because of regulation, right? Somebody needs to take on the liability, right? Ad companies don't really want to take on the liability of professional services. And so I think there'll be some kind of hybrid model going forward there. But even there, I think a lot of the juniors are going to get cut. Um, and then the question is, well, if you cut all the juniors, where are the seniors going to come from 10 years down the road? And I feel like maybe, just like how Googling was a skill back in the early 2000s, where you had to learn how to Google well, maybe you just need to build up those chops in using AI properly, and everyone needs to kind of be at a senior level, but you'll be treated as an entry level down the road.
Yeah, but that's more like kind of entry level too at the time. That's not a senior anymore because you're babysitting the system basically, or just doing the monitoring.
Yeah, yeah,
Not any real work until unless you have like the supreme idea that you wanted to incorporate, because you're feeding
yeah,
so much data to AI to begin with. So I think ideation's gonna go away to at some point. I just think that because people are already doing that, right? They're
yeah,
asking ChatGPT or whatever, hey, I have this idea. What you think about that? Or I wanted to add any bells or whistle to that, basically, So we already see that because I see that in the emails when people are emailing you back and forth
yeah,
using the chatbots for that, So basically,
yeah.
AI is talking to AI. So where is the
Yep.
human touch there?
Yep. This is why I advise a lot of financial advisors. So in the advising space, a lot of people went to virtual first, especially post-corona. Um, I'm telling advisors you need to get back into the office and talk to people directly because AI can't do that. And realistically, people need to be able to provide a service that AI cannot provide. And a lot of that will be in the physical world. So, trades are always talked about, right? Plumbing and electrician work, probably AI cannot do because you have to actually physically manipulate things. And then for things like financial advising, even, right? I think there's a big difference in being able to sit down in front of someone and talk to them in the same room versus just being a virtual talking head in a virtual box like we're doing now.
Yeah, I know it's gonna be strange world that we're stepping into actually, the way things are happening. I mean, even the social media posts, a lot is done by AI, everything. And people were like these long posts, and then it's like, yeah, and I don't think if anybody's reading that. Because
No,
after
no,
reading the first line, you're like, oh, it's all AI written,
yeah,
no
yeah,
emotion. Even the thing is like, oh, very intelligent post, but not necessarily. So let's
yeah,
shift the let's shift the gear here a little bit, You studied machine learning for asset pricing, right? So how do you
correct.
see AI influencing future investment strategies without removing human judgment? Because that's very important in the financial industry, like you were mentioning earlier, your financial advisors, you're asking them to go make that human connection, talk to your clients. I
Mhm.
mean, that human touch has to be there in our world, basically.
Yeah, I think in terms of just pure stock price prediction modeling, at least at the time, it wasn't very good. And so ARIMA models, which are a lot older than machine learning models, were doing a lot better. And ARIMA,
Hmm.
autoregression integrated with moving averages. Um, I think obviously the large language model AI took off a lot more. And I think there's a lot more research and development going on in that field. So what
Hmm.
we're seeing right now in the investment world is using AI to do research. So, like I mentioned before about a lot of junior jobs being cut, I think a lot of junior investment analyst positions are getting cut because people are using AI to do research and track down market signals. And
Hmm.
so you have AI junior analysts doing the research, compiling some interesting leads, and then you have the seniors then vetting those leads as the human in the loop step. And so, because there's just so much information being produced right now, so much market news, so much content, I think people just need AI to be able to digest all that information first as a first layer, and then do the core decision making step afterwards.
So basically, it's like a due diligence process, I would call it in the investing world, especially in our world in real estate, right? So if some investor wanted to use the AI tool, help me understand that, maybe some little bit of the, this machine learning or some tools we can incorporate from there. So what they can do to create a solid, like a due diligence platform for them to vet the maybe other syndicators or vet the other clients or, to create a best possible strategy for themselves.
I mean, for the retail investor, I think the efficient market hypothesis and that kind of portfolio creation is probably still unbeaten. So I think there's no need to overly complicate things there.
Uh-huh.
I think for this kind of stuff is mostly for specialty ETF like providers or specialty fund providers where they need to do a lot more research and provide that niche field. But I think for your everyday investor, retail investor, where you're just investing your own money, yeah, efficient market hypothesis is still
But
unbeaten.
but I still think that even the retail investor don't change something for themselves. But I think the investing portal's gonna change the
Oh
way
yeah,
I
for sure.
because definitely there are gonna be some portals coming out like the complete marketplace where they can have multiple things there. They can pick and choose basically, and all the due diligence process, everything is provided there. That's what I think that's gonna the future looks like to me with the
Mhm.
AI being in place. What do you think? What are your thoughts
Yeah,
there?
absolutely. Again, like these tools of doing news digest probably will be very useful. Back when we were at TD, this Thinkorswim platform was very, very popular with our clients because it provided a large amount of data, trading data, trend data, things like that.
Mhm.
And that news feed can probably have a lot of AI embedded into it, where you can ask it for certain signals from the news, right? Sentiment analysis is a big buzzword in that field, right? And so being able to read the sentiment of the news instantaneously without needing to actually read through the news itself will be a very useful metric going forward.
Interesting. I see that too. I think for the private placements, it's going to be something similar to like the E-Trade and all those platforms that are out there for the stock market. Something similar is coming out pretty soon, or maybe already there too. So
I'm
what,
I'm sure that's already there. Yeah.
already there, I think a lot of the fund portals, they are already doing that, something similar, if not exactly 100%.
Hmm.
So one concern people have is trust, with
Mm.
all these automation in place and everything is kind of handled by the machines. So what do you think, where there's going to be this ethics or norms alignment or the human touch is going to be?
That depends on the people, right? I think especially for regulated industries, it's really good to have a human in the loop step, right? I think the EU AI regulation also requires human in the loop steps for certain processes.
Mhm.
But ultimately speaking, it's how much trust do you want to put into the machine? And I think everyone will have a different risk appetite, and um, people will just need to bear the consequences of what they decide.
Interesting. So tell us more about your company, How did you make this cool wealth building strategy for yourself and what is the future?
Like I mentioned at the top of the meeting or top of the call here, um, it was just seeing the opportunity in reducing a lot of the administrative burden initially. And then now, as we discussed, because of the um, way that it's a lot easier to build new tooling, I think platforms are on its way out, or at least it'll be less profitable because platforms can get so easily copied. And so the future for us is trying to provide a good education for financial advisors who may not be AI experts, and then building out custom tooling for them that they might not otherwise be able to build out themselves.
So you think someday your platform may eliminate all the financial advisors, or maybe it will be available through AI to people?
Well, none of what we're building is replacing financial advisors. All the tools that we're building are to help support the financial advisor
Makes
business.
sense.
And so, yeah, probably not our platform.
Mm-hmm. But do you envision that someday it could happen? Just like people can just take their whole portfolio and just pop into a platform. Okay, tell me what do I do now? I think it is possible. It could happen something like that because the way the data is being gathered, the way the machine learning is, panning out, I just feel like
Sure.
it's gonna be a lot of automation there in
Oh,
near
absolutely.
future.
But you have to remember that there's already a lot of automation, right?
It
Like
is.
robo advisors are a thing, and they've been a thing for a very long time already. And so
Mhm.
everyone who wants an automated investment platform can already get one even before AI existed. And
Mhm.
so the people who wanted that will continue to use it, and the people who want a human will continue to seek out financial advisors.
Hmm. And I think there's when it's like more like in the automated process, I think less room for human error as well, right? Do you think that or no?
Um, Correct, but then the errors will be propagated a lot more because you're all relying on one single system, right? So,
That's true too.
yeah.
That's true too.
Yeah.
So in your crystal ball, what do you see the future
More of the same,
overall?
honestly. More of the same, right? So, clients who want automation for cheap, right? Investment for cheap, they'll gravitate towards these robo advisors, and then the people who just want someone to talk to and trust, and they'll gravitate more towards the human advisors, and there'll be a split in the market. And so um, it'll just, again, to be dependent on the end client's appetite for how much they want to work with a machine as opposed to how much they want to work with a person.
So, but I don't know, it's a funny question that just came to my mind when you said the robo advisors and the human advisors, right? So now we see this, and there might be competition between the two. So I'm just thinking out loud here, if you compare the two, who could be better advisor? Again, it's going to depend on your own personal perspective, right? Basically.
Right. Well, it depends on what you want a financial advisor for. If you just want someone to just invest for you, I mean,
Mhm.
financial advisors already use outsource investment providers anyway, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so at the end of the day, the investments will look very similar probably. The only difference is in the day-to-day decision making and
Mhm.
uh, you know, and advice giving, right? So in your particular financial situation, what should you be doing, right? And that's a question that often gets asked by clients to their financial advisors. And who do you want giving that advice, right? It's not so much on the actual investments itself. Do you want a
Mm.
human to do that for you, or do you just want to talk with ChatGPT and figure that out? Um,
Yeah, and then things might change too a little bit. I'm thinking that, could be cheaper too if it's like we're using the robo advisor or getting the advice like more like in an automated fashion versus uh,
mhm.
somebody human doing that or managing your whole portfolio. We don't
Yeah,
know. We just have to wait and watch which way it's gonna pan out, basically. But we are living in a very interesting world. That's what I have to say. I'm
yeah,
really excited to see what's next, basically. Every day, there is something new.
yeah. Every day there's something new. But again, like I mentioned before, I think it'll be more of the same, right? Because you can already get automated investment advice, and so people who want that are already getting it, and people who want humans who are already using humans, and so yeah, I don't think there'll be too much of a change on that front, at least.
Mhm. That's true. But I think a lot more AI companies are popping up here. They're like you say, intermediaries, lot, and the modeling are only few. So what is the difference, like the biggest difference between the two? Because a lot of people, I think there's a huge confusion regarding that too. Oh, I'm using AI, but are you using a tool or trying to code yourself? Uh,
Mm,
that's what I think misunderstanding there too for a lot of people.
mm, mm. I mean, the providers are pretty obvious, right? Like it's Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, things like that. And then the intermediaries are using those baseline providers and then doing some additional processing on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like that, because I use a bunch of them too. Like Go High Level is so big one too, They're pretty much trying to take over everything, just trying to bring everything into their CRM platform, multiple
Mm,
things, multiple options. But
yeah,
yeah, anything else that you wanted to share with us that you're doing in the AI space that I didn't ask you about because I might not have all the knowledge that
sure,
you have because you are the expert.
sure. Sure. I think we've pretty much covered it. I think the future is in, consultation and custom agentic development because platforms, again, because they're meant to be one size fits all,
Mhm.
are not necessarily going to fit everyone exactly. And so with it being easier and easier to build additional tooling, I think this custom development stuff will take off more and more. And
Mhm.
besides that, if you're interested in finding out more, you can always visit our website at finmate.ai, finmat.ai, and book a call with us.
Perfect. So let's move on to a rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to answer it in one word or one sentence. So the
Okay.
first question is, uh, in your view, what is the most overlooked driver of long-term financial success?
Most overlooked factor. I don't know if it's most overlooked, but I think the biggest one is just longevity and consistency.
Interesting. So what is the biggest misconception people have about AI in wealth management?
I think most people think that AI will just fully replace advisors, but I don't necessarily think that's the case.
We talk about that already,
Yeah.
yes. Well, what single habit do you see separating exceptional advisors from average ones?
Proactivity.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
AI should strengthen what, not replace it.
Say that again, please.
AI should strengthen what, not replace it.
I think AI should strengthen the speed at which people process administrative tasks
Mm,
and not replace advisors.
that's good. So 10 years from now, how do you hope your work is remembered? A good one.
Oh, I don't know if anyone will necessarily remember my work. I don't think we're that important, but hopefully, I guess my hope is people who work with us find us to be helpful and easy to work with.
That's nice. So I think there was a really grounding and really insightful conversation today. And I really appreciate you being with us and sharing, your expertise and also your wisdom regarding the AI framework and then, and the comparison with the human behavior a little bit with that we touched. So for our listeners who want to learn more about you and also wanted to learn about the FinMate AI, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, the best way to reach us is on our website, finmate.ai, or you can email us at support@finmate.ai.
Great. And then you guys are good at the conversational AIs, right? Those tools or
Yes.
the capturing the conversation, right? That's what you mentioned earlier.
Yep, note taking as our initial, and
Note
then
taking, note takers, yeah.
yes, and then the consultation, and then agentic development.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed talking to you today and sharing your perspective with us. And to our listeners, remember, wealth is not just about what you earn or invest in. It's about how intentionally you build relationships, make decisions, and align with the tools shaping the future, which is we are living in this, crazy AI machine world, and then things are changing rapidly, like we're talking. But in this environment too, please stay inspired, stay intentional, and keep building your wealth vibe. Thanks, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Daniel. Really appreciate you being with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wealth Vibe Show. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget your free gift. Download the Busy Professional's Guide to Real Estate Investing at loombainvest.com. See you next time with another amazing guest and another powerful conversation.